as we learn more about, getting ready for the OS migration that will be taking place in approximately 4 years from Microsoft as they end the support for Windows Mobile and CE. We are lucky enough today to have Kevin from Zebra on the call today, who understands where we are now, where we're going to be, and the options that you should be looking at from an enterprise level as you make decisions regarding your handheld computers going forward. With that, I would like to turn it over to Kevin.
Hey, thanks, Mike, and thanks everybody for joining on the call today. Just for a point of introduction, again, my name is Kevin Lalick. I am with Zebra Technologies. I've been, basically you could just call me a mobilist. I've been in the field of enterprise mobility since the mid-'80s. I've seen many evolutions of technology over time, and what we're seeing right now is the fact that we're at yet another crossroads of this evolution in technology. If I can get, there we go. Really what we're going to do today is really talk about what this crossroad means. What is defining this crossroad in terms of the OS landscape and the realities and influences of that landscape in the enterprise, and how we execute on that for our enterprise customers, knowing that a change is going to happen. What are some of the best strategies out there for being able to take existing applications and workflows and migrating those to a new operating system environment? We're also going to talk about going to a more modern environment, or something that meets the user expectation from an experience standpoint, in how we can realize improved efficiencies and productivity improvements under these modern architectures. We're going to talk about some of the additional value that these modern architectures bring to the table, and then talk about some next steps as we wrap things up. So as we get started here, as Mike mentioned, leading into this topic, a well-known path that we have followed in the industry is coming to an end. Microsoft has announced that in the 2020 and 2021 timeframe that they will end all extended support of the existing Windows Mobile and CE embedded operating systems as we know them today. What that means to us as end users of technology, or even us as partners with SMS in providers of that technology, is that this path is going to dictate that applications are going to have to change. As we progress to new operating systems to address this change in technology, the applications that you're running today aren't going to be able to run on the platforms of tomorrow. There's going to be no magic bullet to take an existing cab file per se that you would normally install on a Windows Mobile or Windows CE device and magically install that on Android or even Windows 10, one of the up-and-coming operating systems out there. Those applications are going to have to be rebuilt in one way or another, regardless of the new operating system that's being brought forward. So with that, what I want to do is I want to kind of go through an independent view of what this market looks like and what the OS realities are. We recently just did a series of roadshows throughout North America, or actually globally, talking specifically about this topic. And in North America, we were able to partner with VDC Research, who was able to provide some insight to the audiences as far as what the realities look like. So we know that when we look at the market today, that Windows Mobile and Windows CE is really the dominant platform for rugged handheld devices today. We know, and we'll go through some data here in a little bit, about the fact that you all as customers and the majority of our customers are very conservative in making investments in technology. So so we know that you will continue to maintain these legacy platforms going forward, and we'll talk about some reasons why change is important, I think, at this juncture here. The next generation roadmap from Microsoft is only beginning to solidify. It's interesting that several years ago, back in 2012, at the time Motorola, now Zebra, stood arm in arm with Microsoft on stage at NRF and announced going to market with the next rugged mobile device with Windows Embedded 8.1. Several months, better part of almost 2 years afterwards, there was still no real execution on that strategy. Not any fault of our own, not any fault of Microsoft. It's just that there was no real impetus to be able to move. Only a handful of vendors in the industry came out with devices and so on. Now they've changed the strategy. Windows 10 is a direction going forward, but we as a manufacturer only recently received the bits for the operating system in order to be able to bring products. And we as a manufacturer are basically in the same boat as everybody else in the industry, in that you will not see any products, rugged mobile computing products, really realized until sometime mid-2016. We know for a fact that because of this change that legacy applications are going to have to be rewritten or rebuilt regardless of the new operating system decision going forward. VDC says that Android has a potential to address gaps. We kind of differ, and we'll explain why we do that. But we've got a plan in place in order to be able to make Android secure and reliable, scalable, and stable for the enterprise landscape. The reality today really is, if we look within our organizations, we have to deal with a multi-platform world anyway, and it's going to be true with the rugged handheld market as well. And the challenge today is going to be selecting the appropriate platform for supporting the applications that are important to your business, and doing so in a very sustainable model. So, again, from VDC research, why modernize applications? We know for a fact that the experience that our workers have, that we have in our day-to-day interaction with mobile technologies, is different than a set of expectations we had working with that technology even 3 or 4 years ago. We know that we're used to interacting with the screen. We know that we are used to interacting with devices that may or may not have a keyboard. In surveying the workers, the people that actually have to interact with technology on a day-to-day basis, VDC found that the majority of those people, better than 50% of those people, were dissatisfied with the way they had to interact with that technology. So, the satisfaction with the existing solutions are waning. We'll talk about some ideas why it's going to cost more in the future as we hang on to these legacy solutions. Because of the fact that the support of this operating system is waning and everybody's going in a different direction, there's really a disadvantage if we want to be able to do more with the existing technology that we have as far as the legacy devices. And we're going to see continual changes in the way our workers or our workforce expects technology to behave. We'll talk about some details about this overall. And really what's driving a lot of this in what we've seen overall is, we know because of some indecision, specifically if you look around this 2012 timeframe when Microsoft announced that we're going to have this new way of doing things with Windows Embedded 8.1, is we've seen our customers, and you've seen it yourselves, that you want to hang on to technology longer because of the indecision in the direction that mobile, or specifically enterprise ready or enterprise rugged mobile computing is going to take. We see that people are hanging on to their equipment longer. It's really just a fact of life. But we also see that if we look at over time, the quality of the new hardware is improving. So in the case of, if you look at the blue line at the bottom of the screen, starting in 2010, we expected maybe a 1.8% return rate on devices during the first year of service. And we've seen that it's decreased probably a good 0.5% overall between 2010 and 2014, which is a good thing. It's positive. But comparing that to the red line, which are devices that have been in service for 4 years, is the failure rate or the return rate increases dramatically by a factor probably of about 4x. So, it's interesting to note that as we hang on to equipment longer, as we try to stretch the investment beyond what the normal investment cycle would be, we're going to have higher return rates, right? And what's interesting though is VDC sees this in interviewing with their customers and the people that they work with, is that as devices fail more, it costs organizations a factor of 5x more in the total cost of ownership. So for each 1% increase in device failure rate results in a 5% increase in the total cost of ownership. And this increase in total cost of ownership is impacted by several things. You've got worker downtime, lost productivity, shipping costs, maintenance costs, spare pools that you have to maintain in order to account for this, and so on. So, it's interesting to think about as we think about investing in newer technology. We also have to think about the fact that it's going to cost us more over the years to hang on to older technology in the long run. So there's an advantage of making a move to a more modern platform going forward, right? If you look at the suite of applications, and this is something else that we need to consider when we're moving from one platform to another, is that not all businesses run their operations on just one application. There may be a suite of applications. There may be, in the case of a full-line field service organization, there's inventory applications, there's customer-facing applications, there's dispatch applications, and so on. So as we migrate these applications to newer platforms, we know on the average it takes about 6 months to create an application or to build an application. And if you're talking about 5 or 6 different applications that are required to run your business, that's a significant investment in time. Where partners like SMS can ease that time through their rapid application development tools and the services that they provide in moving these applications forward. But again, there's going to be some challenges for people that are making this migration. The good news is that both SMS as well as Zebra in support of SMS have a suite of services that we can provide in order to be able to ease this migration going forward. As people look at what's real important in features and functionality when designing mobile applications, the top 3 are really around security, providing an intuitive user experience, and simplified and easy access to information. And really, at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants out of their technology, is especially in an enterprise environment, especially with a device in the hands of a worker. You want to be assured that it's secure, that the user experience is unmatched, and that it's simple and easy to integrate into existing systems and applications or environments. Access to offline data is important and so on, but we consider that kind of low-hanging fruit, kind of critical to mobility overall. So as we talk about some of the changes, some of the trends, keep those top 3 things in mind: security, intuitive user experience, and simplified and easy access to information. We'll talk about how the more modern environment brings those decisions forward. And really what that boils down to is, we've got some decisions to make, right? We know we're going to have to make a change, right? So when we make this change, do we choose to make our investment now or make our investment later? And I think some of the data points that we've already talked about, showed some of the advantages of making an investment now, in the fact that we can reduce our total cost of ownership by purchasing more reliable devices that meet an enhanced set of user expectations. We know that we're going to have to choose from a variety of different operating system environments, right? Do we go to an Android route? Do we choose to wait for Windows 10, or do we choose from choose from something more consumer related like iOS, for example? And also, as we make these choices, do we choose between something that's really more targeted to the consumer versus choose a platform that's really focused on the enterprise? So there's some things that we have to think about. And really what this comes down to is the set of decisions and directions that we need to take as a collective going forward, right? We can choose to do nothing. We can choose to utilize the existing platforms and hardware that we have in place, which allows us to focus our investments elsewhere. But in doing such, we potentially, I know we lose on the fact that that it's going to cost us more to maintain the existing information or the existing infrastructure that we have in place, that we're going to reach a plateau in productivity. Our workers are really not going to become any more or less productive based on the technology that they have. It's going to cause you to lag behind your competition in additional productivity gains and efficiencies and so on. And the longer you wait, the more you have to rush to catch up to an inevitable change that's coming down the pipe. Some organizations are going to make a choice to move to something that's more consumer centric, right? Some organizations might choose iOS or Apple devices as their devices, which is perfectly fine. However, there's risks inherent in doing so. For example, if anybody remembers having an iPhone 4, we know of organizations that have made a significant investment in technology in deploying those iTouch devices that had a 30-pin connector at the bottom and so on, and they bought scanner backs and battery packs and charging infrastructure and so on. And the minute that Apple, with really no headwind whatsoever, went to the i5S platform, they changed that connector, which basically obsoleted the entire investment that organizations made in that technology going forward. So it ended up costing them additional money and additional investment, which basically negated any savings that they made in making the investment in consumer technology to begin with. So that's really something to think about. What it does do is provide the user the experience that they're looking for. But again, it's important to us as a collective, yourselves and us and SMS, to make sure that the investment that you make in technology is well protected. You can choose to wait and migrate to Windows 10, which is fine. But again, there's even what we see in an industry, some challenges in doing so. We know as a partner of Microsoft in wanting to bring these products to market, originally, we were supposed to have a unified Windows 10 strategy, mobile, desktop, tablet, etc., back in July of last year. That didn't happen. We finally, in December of last year, got the bits for mobile. And knowing that there's going to be changes going forward, we're going to start seeing these changes in 2015. But we'll talk a little bit about really what the focus of Microsoft is going to be going forward and how that is going to impact some decisions. And finally, the middle choice here is to really go with something that is available, scalable, trusted, enterprise-ready, secure, proven, and meets all the expectations that our workers have in interacting with mobile technology. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to give you a little bit of a view as far as what the global reality is when it comes to how consumers or how our users interact with technology. So as we look at the market, and we as a manufacturer manufacturing for a global market, we know that based on IDC studies and information from the TOB index and so on, that the majority of devices that are out there in the hands of the users in the global population are Android. 78% of the global population has experience with Android devices. Where 18% is iOS, and 3% is somewhere in the Windows Mobile, Windows 8 environment. And that's really what's driving a set of expectation on behalf of our users. If we look at just the North America market, it's probably about a 55, 45, or 54, 44, and 2% market space, where the majority, 54%, have Android, The 48% have iOS, and you'll see that in your day-to-day interactions of friends and whatnot. About half of them are Android, and half of them use Apple devices. But if you look at this from an enterprise construct, we and everybody else that manufactures in the rugged mobile industry, the majority of the devices that exist today are still based on Windows Mobile and Windows CE. About 1% of the devices, the 192 different devices that you have a choice of, are based on Windows Embedded 8.1 with a potential path to Windows 10. What's interesting, though, is that the rugged market is really looking to adopt Android, and that 23% of the devices that are offered in our competitive space are based on Android. So it's interesting to look at the dynamic. And within the rugged mobile space, there are no other manufacturers within our industry that have a device that offers iOS. So that, that's something to really think about. It's all really consumer driven from that standpoint. Along the bottom of the screen here, if we look at the handheld vendors that are out there, 78% of them they do offer Android as the solution, although not on par with the number of devices that are out there. The number of manufacturers that are making devices is really continuing to grow and adopt that direction going forward. And if you look at just our performance as Zebra, the majority of our platforms in 2015 we're growing double-digit growth, 2x growth year over year on the number of device shipments that we're going forward with Android. Right. The reason that we're choosing this as a direction going forward, number one, is that it is an open source platform that allows us and allows the rest of the industry to take that platform and lever its features and capabilities and the drive of the user experience in delivering something that delivering an architecture that is really meets the requirements of the enterprise. And this slide here helps to illustrate that, because we have to, as denizens to the industry, we have to make sure that we've got devices that are acceptable and adaptable to the end user experience. And I'll call that the enterprise class experience. It's got to be pocket sized. It's got to, it's got to be intuitive to use. It's got to be visually appealing. People expect to have on-screen keyboards these days, but in difference from the consumer environment, we also take into account the things at the on the bottom half of the screen, like for example, let's go back to the case for the Apple devices, right? We as manufacturers, and I think it's important to you in partnership with SMS, is you look at the accessory ecosystem and the life cycle of the product overall, right? We will not overnight obsolete an entire line of accessories and products just because we decide that we're going to change a connector. If you look at the experience with our devices, if you've got the MC9000 family, it's had a good 8+ year road of common accessories and support of those things. So we really take into account the investment that organizations make, not only in the device itself, but also in everything that's needed in order to be able to support that device. From a life cycle standpoint, we don't turn hardware every 6 months. What we'll do is we'll keep a pulse of the market and be able to come out with iterative devices that are backward compatible and forward compatible with your infrastructures. Doing that along with maintaining a secure and reliable environment. And again, that was top of mind in people that are making investment in technology. Security was their number one concern. Adding on to the fact that if we think about the connectivity requirements of a consumer device on a Wi-Fi network are, can I attach to an access point? And if I can, that's great. What we do and what we have to be cognizant of is your environment, where you're going to have a multi-celled wireless environment. And how does that device really perform when it roams from cell to cell to cell of coverage? Assuring that we don't have a drop connection just because I'm going from one access point to another access point. That has to be built in cooperatively with the device hardware itself, and that's something that we really use to differentiate ourselves among these consumer devices. If anybody's ever had more than one access point in your house and you've done a Skype call while you're trying to go from one end of the house to the other end of the house, your call will drop. But the thing is, with a reliable enterprise-grade infrastructure as well as the cooperative mobile client, that connection maintains persistence, and it's important to maximize productivity and to make sure that your workers are as productive as they possibly can be. Another thing that's important, especially in our environment, is the fact that a device is not owned by an individual, right? These devices are shared. And in doing such, in sharing these devices, we have to make sure that they support multiple users. A user can log in and log off and so on. When you take that consumer device, it in a sense becomes an owned entity by the individual who's using it, especially if you allow other applications like personal email and things like that, where it would be what we refer to in the industry as a COPE device, corporately owned, personally enabled. We build in capabilities that allow that type of device sharing. It's not necessarily cognizant based on the experience with consumer technology that is going to happen. So, again, there's a lot of things to think about, especially when you're making a choice to move to a more modern environment. But also, don't forget the things that are important to you. Total cost of ownership, the life cycle, the accessories, the enterprise durability, the control of the operating system updates, I think, is another key factor, and that's something that we really have to focus on and continue going forward. So this slide really compares the differences between a couple of different choices that are out there, and when we think about technology, right? Each of us that are on the phone here think about a technology in a couple of different ways, right? Okay, I like to think of these as how I like to buy, right? And when I think technically about making a purchase decision, and this is true if I'm making an investment for my business or if I'm making an investment for myself, right? My concerns when I'm looking at technology are: is it secure? Can I control the OS updates, or am I left to the whim of my carrier or even a manufacturer to say, here's an update date, it's going to be pushed out to you. It may or may not break the existing business applications that you have, right? So if I were what I call an IT focused individual, I would think about what it is that I'm making the investment in technology in, and with Android, we've got the ability to be able to address a lot of these concerns that these IT-focused individuals might have in making investments in technology, right? And if you think about it from an end-user perspective, right, I as a consumer of the technology or a user of the technology, I want to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of my work, right? Our goal is to not encumber productivity based on the application of technology. So we want to make sure it's user-friendly, that we can lock it down to keep it functional within the worker environment and so on. And then we also have to make sure from an economic standpoint that it's cost-effective. Is it not only cost-effective to acquire, to make the investment in technology, but also what it's going to cost me in order to be able to provision these devices or sustain these devices over the long haul? Right? So these are things that I need to think about when I make an investment in technology. And we've got ways to address each of those concerns, based on the architectures that are available today. So it's really something to think about. For example, if I decided that I'm going to deploy Samsung devices out there and I wanted to deploy 500 of them in my workforce, if I wanted to do that today, I would have to pick up and touch and configure 500 individual devices. If I made a choice in a platform of going to Android and wanted a rugged experience, I can deploy 500 devices through partners like SMS, or to simply set up some rules and use a tool to be able to scan a barcode. And once I've scanned the barcode, I can set up my network settings, I can download programs and so on, and be in a sense work ready without having to go through an exercise of manual data input on these devices overall. So there's some advantages overall. Okay, so moving now, I think we've got a way to address user expectations with a more modern environment today. And doing so today allows us to be able to implement technology that's going to, really, if you look at what's important to the end user in keeping them productive, right? If I can give somebody a tool that they're familiar with in their outside of work life and make that tool productive in their work life, that's a big win right there, right? It results in immediate gains in productivity. It results in immediate gains in employee satisfaction, right? And we think about these as some, soft benefits of things like that. But when you look at some of the hard benefits, if I have to spend less time teaching somebody how to use technology, case in point would be a seasonal warehouse worker. We know with our old technology in a very large seasonal distributor, and I'm sure everybody buys from around the holidays, that it takes an average of 3 days or so for a worker to get familiar with using old style technology. Terminal emulation, how do I use the keyboard, how do I interact with the application. The minute I take that same application and modernize it, their training time goes from 3 days down to 4 hours. So there's significant improvements made in significant productivity gains, which basically, in the case of this large this large online ordering service, resulted in a sense, man years worth of savings in overall productivity implementing newer technology versus old technology. So there are some hard dollar savings associated with this as well. So it's really important to be able to think about these things going forward. So let's talk about a couple of examples. Excuse me. Going to a more modern environment allows us to drive immediate business gains. Because I'm providing technology that's more in line with what the end user expectation is, it results in immediate improvements in typing speeds, giving them a data entry method that they're familiar with versus an ABCD hard key layout that they have to, in a sense, re-brain train themselves to interact with each time they pick up that technology. So they can type faster. It also, interestingly enough, results in reduced error rates, right? So if I can keep them focused on the task at hand, if I can modernize the application to be more scan intensive and less keyboard intensive, or when it is keyboard intensive, give them an input methodology that they're familiar with, it has a direct measurable impact on reducing the error rates. And think about that for a minute. Think about how that might relate to the cost of an error introduced within your organization. So if I can reduce error rates and reduce the impact on errors within the organization, there's immediate gains in productivity as well. And again, these things overall resulted in a 15 to 20% gain in overall productivity with our workers. The other thing to consider, is improving existing applications, right? So if we think about a lot of the applications that we have in production today, right? And in some cases, especially in warehousing and manufacturing, a lot of those applications are still green screen terminal emulation applications. We've been running our business on these things for the last 30 years and will continue to do so because they work, right? But what if I was able to take and modernize that experience to give the worker something that's more in context of the way they're used to interacting with technology? For example, if we look at this middle green screen here, looking at this pick menu, this is something that we've seen after we log in. We see a menu of information and so on. It says number 1, start a new pellet. Number 2, resume a new pellet. But what if I was able to provide a client on the device itself that would recognize that inbound presentation space and say, that looks like a menu because I see a list of numbers and I see a single character input field. I'm going to present it to the user in big button format. So when the user wants to, for example, start a new pallet, they press the start a new pallet button and it sends to the back-end system the number 1 to be able to start the new pallet function. And in doing so, rather than showing them this green screen at the bottom screen here, let's show them something more in context with the way that they're used to interacting with technology. And that's something that's available today. That's something that can be implemented immediately. It may require some tweaks here and there in order to be able to get it to look right for your end user, but no changes have to be made to the back-end system. It's all changed on the client side. And once we get the client side done, we can deploy it to all the other devices that are out there. So this is really what I call low-hanging fruit in order to be able to provide your users a modern experience in a way that they expect technology to behave, yet minimize the investment that you have to make in the back-end applications to be able to move these things forward. And again, partners like SMS are perfectly poised to be able to provide this capability going forward. You know, and think about the other concern of our top three, right, was how easy is it to integrate technology into my existing systems? And again, Microsoft has really done the industry, all of us collectively, you, our partners, and ourselves as providers, a really big favor in that they recognize the consumer influence of devices within the enterprise. In fact, they have made significant investments in technology in order to be able to support these new devices. For example, bringing Microsoft Office to the iPad. I think that was huge for them to be able to do that. They've done the same thing to Android as well. And in doing such, what we're seeing in the industry is Microsoft is really betting on providing a Microsoft experience, regardless of the platform that's in the hand of the end user. So when it comes to back-end infrastructure compatibility, Microsoft has done a great job in adopting Android as one of their favorite platforms as well. So if you look at Active Directory integration, Microsoft Exchange integration, Active Sync capabilities, and so on. I mean, this is all things that they're building into. So the more modern back-end servers, they're already able to support these existing Android and even to some degree iOS platforms going forward, right? So the compatibility is addressed. It's well supported, and again, this familiarity with the consumer side and the outside of work experience with technology is really what's starting to drive adoption overall. Okay. So as we look at technology and ways to do more things with it, right? We, along with SMS, in our partner community at large, really get together and come up with new ways of doing things. And these new way of doing things, we strategize together and build into our platforms, and we call this mobility DNA. And if you think about mobility DNA, just like biological DNA made up of components, and I'm not going to do a biology quiz here, but the components are A, C, T, and G. Adenosine, cytosine, something, and guanine, I think, are some of those components. But anyway, just think of mobility DNA as that same structure. Mobility DNA is made up of groups of components as well. Things that are important to the developers, things that are what we call applications that drive additional gains in productivity, things like utilities, all built on purpose-built devices and support that really make this more modern way of experiencing true rugged enterprise group mobility happen. Really, if you think about these changes and what it means going forward, is that we've got a platform that allows you to make a go-forward direction today. It's proven in the enterprise. It is airtight, secure, and controllable. It is adaptable, which allows us to be able to take and iterate variants of the common operating system across different form factors to give you one common way of supporting an environment overall. It's well supported. It's compatible with the back-end Microsoft back-ends that are out there, and it is a familiar experience. And the way we deliver this is really with our partners, right? And it is a long-standing partnership overall. For over the years, we're building a structure based on the ability and our ability to deliver a more modern environment, and what we're not only relying on Microsoft today, but also in partnership with Microsoft going forward for Windows 10, and working together with our partners to be able to bring these forward. And it's really all about driving this with our partners and providing additional services. So as we think about this migration, we're also presented, I think, with a really unique opportunity, and to be able to take a look at our current workflows and our processes, be able to optimize them, be able to drive improved productivity through making the experience with technology more intuitive, and giving us different ways to look at working together and mobilizing that data. Okay. So really, at the end of the day, it's all about decisions that need to be made, right? And hopefully during this session we've talked about what some of those decisions are, right? We know that change is going to happen. We know that making investments in technology today is going to result in an overall lower total cost of ownership for the future. We know that there is definitive gains in productivity in moving to a more modern architecture now. We know that the operating systems are ready to go forward, and working together with SMS and ourselves, we can lever our collective experience in helping you make a decision and a direction on our go-forward strategies, and looking at the portfolio and making sure that devices at hand are specifically targeted to your workflows overall, right? So again, plan for change. Know that change is inevitable, right? Work with SMS and ourselves to be able to help with that future mobility planning. Take a look at your current application portfolio and do an application assessment, right? Really understand what your mobile workflow and work environment looks like today, and craft a solution, including the retirement plans for those existing solutions. And then let's work together to manage this new landscape to avoid future issues. And again, it's all about a partnership, working with SMS and ourselves in order to be able to do this and drive this forward. So with that, Mike, I wanted to turn it back over to you to see if we've got any questions from the audience. So,
Paul, I think you were recording the questions, so.
Yes, we have 4 questions at this point. So I will go ahead and read those through, and if the individual that's best suited to answer takes it away. So the first one, knowing that this change is coming, how ready are groups like the SMS group going to be able to support these efforts with you?
Well, the SMS group, we've been planning, going forward with the different operating systems so that we can present to our customers multiple devices, depending on which way Microsoft goes. So we've actually invested in additional personnel as well as additional technology platforms here. So we are ready to go with multiple platforms, including Android, as of today, due to the investments we've already made.
All right.
That's great to hear.
The second question is related to Windows 10. So what are you seeing in the industry as far as the overall adoption of Windows 10?
That's a good question. Really what we're seeing in the industry as far as the adoption is right now there is no adoption from the mobile enterprise rugged mobile perspective. And I wanted to clarify that. And the reason being is that because there really is not until just a matter of a couple weeks ago, the industry overall, and when I say the industry, this is not only Zebra, but if you look at the Honeywell's, Intermex, Datalogix, Fidian, and so on, the manufacturers didn't get the bits until just a couple weeks ago. And now we're able to start taking those bits and building them into our hardware platforms. And like I said, it's probably going to be until mid-2016 before we really start seeing Windows 10 mobile devices hit the marketplace. So it's a good question, but the adoption is still to be seen. We do see a lot of customers that want to hold out, but we also have seen a lot of customers that are just tired of waiting and that have been able to realize immediate gains by going to a more modern platform overall.
Thank you. There are two that have to do, they're very similar, so I'm going to read them both at once for you. Is Zebra going to end support on the hardware if the OS isn't current with the standard? And the second highly related question is, will Zebra discontinue support of legacy devices once the replacements are available?
That's a good question. So basically, the way we go to market with our hardware is depending on platform is we plan for what we call a 3.3 or a 5.5 life cycle, right? So we come out with a platform. We expect that it's going to last maybe 3 years in market, and then the minute that gets discontinued, we will continue to support that platform, that hardware platform, for 3 years into the future. So, again, if you're making an investment in technology today, even if we decide to discontinue it tomorrow, that platform will still be supported for the duration of that investment overall. And like I said, we also know that customers may choose to support that longer. And working with our partners, we can work out extended service offerings as well. The second part of the question, I think, related to, are we going to discontinue support of the operating system once Microsoft announces their discontinuation? And basically, we're left at a point where we have no choice, where we will do with our best efforts, support that operating system, but we cannot guarantee that we'll be able to address everything without the help of Microsoft. In fact, I know that there's still customers that are out there that are still running our old DOS-based devices. We basically just can't support them, but it's not to say that they won't be viable within the industry. It's just going to be something to think about as we carry these platforms going forward. So it's not to defer a decision. Just know that you'll be well protected in the decision that you make today, regardless of the platform that you make. But if I'm making an investment in technology today, I want to make sure that I'm investing in a technology that's going to be well supported beyond what I expect my investment life cycle to be. Because we know, in reality that, especially in a lot of industries, if you look at manufacturing or warehousing, we try to maximize every penny of investment that we make. In fact, I joke sometimes that warehousing is one of those industries. Well, they'll squeeze a nickel so hard it'll drip 6 pennies. So we know we want to make sure that we're protected today. And if we make investments today in a more modern platform, we're going to be protected in the long term and making those investments stick.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that answer. And there's 2 more questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is a direct follow-up to that question, so I just want to make sure I answer that one, or I present that one first. But as a follow-up, will legacy devices still be purchasable with CE6.X after Microsoft discontinues?
Microsoft has also announced a kind of like an end of license as well during this, and this is something that's relatively new. I think the end of license is going to extend maybe 12 months after, but the best place to find an answer on that would be on Microsoft's support site. So you can go to Microsoft.com and do an end of license support search on that, which means basically the manufacturers are no longer going to have any ability to license the distribution of that operating system, Windows CE or Windows Mobile, going forward either.
And the last question I have, and I'd urge anybody, if you still have questions, please type them in. But the last question I have on the docket appears to be for both, and it is dealing with timing. So how quickly can we begin migrating applications in our environment to newer devices?
Mike, you want to take that one?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, Paul? I missed the last part of that.
Sure, absolutely. The question is around timing, and it is, how quickly can we begin migrating applications in our environment to newer devices?
Actually, I think you have the capability to start migrating now. It's not something you have to wait for until 2020. And there are a couple ways you could do it. If it's an enterprise application there's a product that we were working with Zebra on called what is that? I'm sorry, iFleet.
iFactor.
iFactor. I'm sorry. That can start working right now. Now, if you're looking to convert handheld applications from a Windows Mobile scenario or CE scenario, SMS has the personnel on the platform that we could actually be working on that as soon as you're ready. So you don't have to wait for that technology to be here. We already have the capability to do that and have applications actually out in the field written in for the Android devices.
Yeah, good answer. And again, the answer is now. We've got the platforms, we've got the technology. We've been running this, Android as a preferred platform and modernizing the user experience for the last 2.5, pretty close to 3 years now. We've tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of devices in market already. We've had customers that were waiting to make a Microsoft decision in the past for 15,000 devices that they wanted to deploy. They made a decision to go Android. We were able to execute and start deploying those applications on Android within 3 months after the customer saying, I'm tired of waiting and I want to go now. And let's go ahead and make a decision to go something more modern. So it's all there and it's all now.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you very much for answering those questions. Those are there are no other questions on the docket. And if there are any other questions that are typed in, we will get those in a report and they will be distributed out to Mike and Kevin. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mike and Kevin.
Well, I would like to just thank Kevin for his time, and I certainly would like to thank everyone who took the time out of their busy schedules to join us today for this. If you do have any questions whatsoever, please contact me. My contact information is on the screen, and we certainly would look forward to helping even just discuss your strategies going forward. It's not necessarily I have an application today that I want to work with, but if you just want to discuss where your applications are going or what additional help that we could provide to you from a consulting standpoint, please contact me at your earliest. And once again, I really do want to thank everyone for the valuable time that you spent to be on the call today.
Likewise, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their days to get a better grasp of what the landscape is looking at and some of the solutions that are available in market today. So I appreciate your time.
And I apologize. One additional piece of information that I did leave off is this call has been recorded and will be up on our website within the next few days.
All right, with that, thank you very much, everybody. We're going to stop the recording and the webinar. Have a great day.